Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, and I heartily welcome to all the participants of this course which is designed for MS Project Management, and the title of the course is Management Organizational Policies and Practices. Before I start with the contents of the course, I would like to give a brief introduction of myself, my academic and professional background. I have basically done my master's in economics from Punjab University in 2002, and after that I joined the banking sector in Pakistan and served with Bank Al Falah Limited for almost 3 years as management banker. Then I went to Netherlands for my higher studies and did my master's in business administration with specialization in human resource management from University of Twente, the Netherlands, which is a renowned university the world over. So after doing my MBA in the year 2008, I immediately started with my PhD project, and I finished my PhD in 3 years' time. So in 2011, after finishing my PhD, I came back to Pakistan and joined ComSat's Institute of Information Technology as assistant professor, and I'm working here as professor in management. Right, so this was the introduction of this was my introduction, and now I begin with the course introduction. So I would before starting with the contents of today's lecture, I would like you to know what we are, how this course is designed, and what we are going to cover for this course. So the course outline is, we would start with the introduction to management, which is also the first lecture of today. Then we move to the to how the managers need to manage strategically in today's world. So that would constitute our second lecture. Then we have organizational external environment, means that what are the external forces that affect an organization and how the managers need to deal with those external forces. Then we also have an internal environment of the organization, which means that what are the internal opportunities, or what are the internal strengths and weaknesses of the organization, and how the organization has to deal with those internal strengths or weaknesses that the organization has. Then our next topic for this course would be corporate, global and firm level strategies. So the strategies at the corporate level, strategies at the global level, and the strategies at the firm level, they differ. Business units have different strategies, and the corporate strategies are different. There is a corporate parent and there is a business unit level. So we'll see that how the strategies of the firms differ as per the levels of the firms. And then we the next topic of in the course would be implementing strategies, that is and the issues that are faced by the management in implementing the different strategies that are developed by the organization, how the management can cater to the different issues that may arise. Then we'll talk about organizational structure. Different organizations can come up with different structures. For example, structure can be very much flat, or it can be bottom up, or it can be top down. So there are a number of different organizational structures. We'll be seeing that how the different organizational structures lead to different management issues, and how the different management styles need to be different as per the organizational structures, and how the organizational strategy need to match the organizational structure to come up with optimum results. Then we have the ethics and social responsibility. What is the social responsibility of the managers? What are the ethical standards that need to be set in the organization? How the ethics of the managers themselves affect the decision making, and things like that. And then we have planning, how the managers can plan, how they need to plan, how planning affects management. Okay, then we have the decision making, organizational decision making, managerial decision making, whether it needs to be, the managers need to decide individually, or whether it needs to be a participative decision making. So we'll talk about the decision making in this during this lecture. Then the next lecture would be managing information. Information management is highly important, because because there are lots of changes that are taking place in this today's corporate world, and managers need to have sound information systems where they can get information from the external environment, and they can assimilate and use that information for their company in order to produce the strategies that are aligned with the challenges of the external environment. Then we have the control. Of course, all the managerial policies, the objectives that an organization formulate, they are they may not prove to be that effective if there are not enough control mechanisms in the organization. So we'll be dealing with different evaluation strategies, different feedback options, and different other controlling possibilities that the management may use to for the effective results, for the better results, for achievement of organizational objectives, and for the evaluation. Then we have the global management. Next, we'll be dealing with the innovation management. The innovations, why innovations are important, how managers can make their organizations more innovative, and stuff like that. Then the next topic would be the change management. Of course, as we discussed earlier, as I told you earlier a little bit, that changes are the hallmark of today's organizations. There are lots of changes taking place. The world is really adapting, and the world is becoming global village. So how the changes can be managed well, what are the different challenges that the managers can face, well, what are the different resistances that the managers can face. We'll be talking more about change management in this lecture. Then we have the designing adaptive organizations. Why the organizations need to be adaptive, we'll discuss in this section. Then we have the managing diversity. With the changes in the population mix, there is the diversity management is a big challenge for today's managers. So the managers may have to face the lawsuits, they may have to go to courts if they are not giving equal employment opportunities, for example, to the diverse workforce, if they are not maintaining a fair portion of diverse workforce in their hiring and their selection procedures. If they are not following the diversity policies, they may have to suffer huge financial losses as well as the reputational risks. So we'll be discussing in detail about the different diversity management issues, diversity management practices in this section. Then our next section would cater to the managing teams. Of course, the work designs, the work systems are changing with the changing nature of the organizations. Now more and more work is revolving around teams. So the concept of teamwork is increasing compared to the concept of individual style of working, which used to be in the traditional classical organizations. Then we have, then in the next section we'll be seeing the determining human resource needs. There could be different human resource needs, such as finding and developing qualified employees, their performance appraisal, management, and retention. So these are very detailed topics. We'll be discussing them in individual lectures, and then our next lecture would be on managing service and manufacturing operations. So it will be more related to the process management as well, and as well as to the a little bit we'll be talking about the product management, about the process management, and about the manufacturing concerns and about the service concerns, how they are managed. Then we'll be seeing that why motivation is important. Motivation is a very interesting topic, as well as it has gained huge attention not only from the human resource managers, but also from economists, also from organizational psychologists, also from industrial psychologists, and also from organizational behavior theorists. So it has attracted a huge amount of attention from all these different circles and all these different academicians, because it has huge implications for the practitioners, the motivation of employees, motivation of employer, whose motivation. So we'll be discussing in detail the different motivation theories, why they emerged in this session. And in our next lecture, we'll again talk about motivation, because as I told you that it's very important topic in all the different areas. So we'll be discussing that how we can motivate our employees through the design of work, and what are its implications for the employees, for the organization, with respect to the outcomes for the employees and for the organizations. Our next session would be, a lecture would be on leadership theories. We'll be discussing the different leadership theories: charismatic leadership, it can be transactional leadership, transformational leadership, which models we are talking about. We'll be discussing in detail about the different leadership theories, their implications for the followers, their implications for the subordinates, how the different leadership styles, different leadership theories lead to different employee outcomes, lead to different subordinate outcomes, how they are related to the leader effectiveness, and how they are related to the organizational effectiveness, if at all. Then our next session would be managing communication. Communication management, of course, it's really important, and the importance of communication is increasingly recognized. Earlier there was concept of one-way communication, top-down communication. All the decisions, they were communicated from the top management, from the middle management, to the shop floor workers, to the lower level employees. But now things are changing because of the changing nature of challenges that the organizations are facing. It is no more possible to have this kind of autocratic decision-making style, autocratic style of communication, and autocratic style of management. That is not possible anymore. Therefore, communication needs to be managed properly. How it needs to be managed? Does it need to be a two-way communication? Does it need to be a bottom-down, lateral, or what kind of communication it needs to be? We will be discussing the different communication issues in this section. And then we'll be talking about stress management. Of course, in today's corporate world, where there are increasing challenges for the organizations, they're ultimately transferring into the challenges for the employees. How the job of the employee can be stressful, under what circumstances it can be stressful, what can be the different stressors for the employees. So work-life balance, for example, can be a stressor for the employee, or there can be a number of other organizational and individual factors that can lead to the individual stress. So what are the roles and responsibilities for the employee when it comes to the stress management? What are the roles and responsibilities of the employer when it comes to the stress management? We'll be discussing all such issues in this session. Then we have another interesting session which is on personality traits and outcomes. So we'll be talking about how different individuals, whether they be employees or they be employers or they be managers, how they can exhibit different personality traits, and how the different personality traits can be related to the differential outcomes. Well, then how employees who are prone to dissatisfaction, what the managers can do for that kind of employees, what is the role of the managers, how the managers can build some individualized relationship with the employees depending upon their personality traits. So again, the implications for management when vis-a-vis the personality traits of the workers in the organization. So then our next topic in this course would be justice, fair treatment, and dismissal management. Justice is of course an important issue. It can again lead to lawsuits if employees perceive that they're not being treated fairly or justly. So what are the different dimensions of justice? What is fair treatment? How employees can be treated fairly? What would be considered unfair treatment? When a manager can dismiss an employee, what is wrongful discharge, what is termination at will, and topics like that will be covered under this section. Then we have the safety and health management. Safety and health management, again, what are the different safety hazards that can be there in the workplace, how safety hazards can lead to different lawsuits and other financial losses for the employer and the employee. What can be the different health challenges that the employees may have, or that the organization may face from the employees. So all these issues, what are the roles and what are the responsibilities of the two parties when it comes to the safety and health of the employees. So we'll be discussing these in this issue, in this section, that what is the role of the manager in dealing with these issues. Then we have the labor relations and collective bargaining. So of course, management is also about managing the labor. It's where labor, of course, the employees, they are one of the very critical pillar of the organization. They are very critical stakeholder in the organization. So relationship management with the labor and the different collective bargaining principles, different collective bargaining agreements, what can be bargained, what cannot be bargained, what may be bargained, all these kind of issues, the issues of strikes, the issues of other important nature that are relating to the industrial relations, they would be dealt with in this section. Okay, so this is the outline that we are going to discuss for this course, and there might be a little up and down in this outline. Maybe it is not followed in the order it has been shown here 100%, but most of it would be followed in the order it has been shown here. So the reference material for this book, of course, at this level, at the level of MPhil or MS that you are in, we don't have one textbook that I could refer you to, or which would be sufficient for you to prepare this course, because this course has not been prepared from one textbook. It has been prepared with the help of a number of different books, but mainly the book by Chuck Williams has been used, and the name of the book is Management. Other than that, as I told you, there are a number of other reference books that have been used, which are on organizational management and which are on strategy. Some of the topics have been taken from books on human resource management. They have also been utilized for the purpose of preparation of these lectures and this course. So you could refer to all those different books. The contents most of the contents would be overlapping in most of the books on organizational management, most of the books on human resource strategy, but mainly the books from management have been followed, right? So the contents would be same if for most of the books. If you read most of the books, you'll find similar contents. Okay, and then we have the of course the online search. For some of the information we have also collected by online search through Wikipedia, through Google, or through other online sources from some journals or from some other good articles in the reputed journals. Some of the information has also been taken from there. Okay, and one more thing that I would like to tell you before starting with today's lecture is how you are going to get marks. What is the division of marks? Okay, first, as you know, at this level, at the MPhil level, you don't have any sessionals. You will be having one midterm examination and one final examination. Before your midterm examination, you'll be having one quiz, and after your midterm examination, you'll be having another quiz or assignment. And now the weightage of these different assignments, quizzes, and marks for your midterm examination, you have 25% marks. Your final examination constitutes 50% marks, so it makes a total of 75% marks, and the 25% marks is for your quizzes and assignments. So this is how you will be judged for the course. Okay, so let's now start formally with the lecture, with the first lecture of today. As I told you earlier, it's going to be introduction to management, to organizational policies and practices, to the different, you will basically be developing an understanding of what we mean by management. When we talk about management, when we talk about organizational policies and practices, we are basically talking about management, how to manage an organization effectively in a way that and how to develop the organizational policies and practices in a way that organizational objectives are met. So management is about organizational policies and practices are also a way of managing the organization, because policies and practices help in managing the goals of the organization. So very precisely what you can expect in today's lecture, or what you need to learn after today's lecture is finished, what we expect from you to learn is you should be able to describe what management is. Then secondly, you need to explain what are the main 4 functions of management. Then you need to describe different kinds of managers, explain the major roles and sub-roles that managers perform in their jobs, explain what companies look for in managers. Then you need to discuss the top mistakes that managers might make in their jobs, describe the transition that employees go through when they are promoted to management, and explain how and why companies can create competitive advantage through people. So our last session would be on competitive advantage through people, which would also lead us to the next lecture, which would be on the strategic management, how to manage people strategically, that is how to gain competitive advantage through people. So I'll be briefly touching upon all these different aspects during this introductory lecture, and all these different aspects would be covered in detail in the upcoming lectures. Okay, if I open the case with giving an example from AT&T, which is the largest telecommunication company in the world, it might be interesting for you to know that they spend around $350 million every 3 years on management consultancy. So they give fee to management consultants for providing them the services on how to manage their organization, how to manage their people effectively. They take that kind of services from the consultants, from the management consultants, and pay them around $350 million every 3 years, which is a very huge amount. Why is that? That is because of the increasingly acknowledged importance of effective management within the organization. So many of the studies, many of the researchers report that the organizations that use effective management practices, they have around 10 to 15% higher return on investment than the organizations that do not use effective management, or they do not employ effective management practices. Also, effective managers, they have been reported to be get better customer satisfaction. Why? Through the mediating role of employees. Effective managers are reported to be to draw positive satisfaction from their employees, from their workers, and that satisfaction of the workers, of the employees, then translates into happy customers. Happy employees, only happy employees can lead to happy customers, and employees would be happy when they are satisfied with the management styles. When the management is effective, employees would be happy. When employees would be happy, customers would be happy. So if the customer satisfaction is there, customer happiness is there, of course the company is going to prosper, customers are going to be more loyal, and the company is going to gain more and more sales and more profits and more returns. Okay, so these 2-3 examples were to give you an understanding of why understanding different management issues is important, because it is directly linked to different outcomes that are most critical to the organization. Okay, then what is management? Management is getting work done through others, not doing the work yourself. It is getting work done through others, through other people, managing other people, getting your tasks done through other people. Let me here give you an example of Pat Kerrigan. Pat Kerrigan, if you might be familiar with this name before, he's manager at General Motors car manufacturing part plants. Previously, he was just an elementary school teacher, and now he is the manager at car parts manufacturing plant. So it would be interesting for you to know that he, in his own words, he says that he has never manufactured even one single part of the car himself, and neither he plans to do that, because he says that his job is not to do the work himself, but his job is to ensure that there is a conducive environment for his workers to produce the desired output in time and efficiently. So if we go to the previous slide, we see that one, management is getting work done through others, but that is not enough. It should be done efficiently and it should be done effectively. So efficiency entails minimum waste, effort and expense. So when we'll say that the work has been done efficiently, when it is done with minimum waste, when it is done with minimum amount of effort which is exerted on the work, and when it is done with minimum expense. So the costs are lower to do that work, to get that output. Waste is lowest to get that output, and effort is also low to get that output. So then that work is efficient. Then you say that you are doing it efficiently. And the other component is effectiveness. Effectiveness is accomplishing tasks that help fulfill organizational objectives. So here we to further highlight the importance of these two aspects of management, I have an example of Chrysler here. Chrysler is a very leading car company. You know, it's a top of the line car company in the world, and their immediate competitors are General Motors, Ford. They're their immediate competitors. They noticed around 2 decades or 3 decades back in 1990s that their profits were declining, their sales were declining, and their market share was declining, although they were giving their output very efficiently, which means that their costs were lower than the costs of their competitors. So their cars were cheaper than the cars of General Motors and Ford, but still they were running out of market share, they were running out of profits. The management of the company, the top management of the company, it changed the designs of the car. It brought new designs, new shapes of the car. They did market search, they did survey on the customers, they did survey on the needs of the customers, and they redesigned their products. They brought in new cars in the market which sold like hotcakes, and they again captured huge market share and profitability returned. So this is an example to show that only the efficiency is not sufficient to stay you abreast in competition. You also need to be effective along with efficient, and the management is responsible to gain the output which is both efficient and which is both effective. Only efficient is not enough. So our next section is on management functions. Management functions, management can, these are classical management functions which you will find in any book of management. These 4 functions. First one is planning, the second is organizing, third is leading, and 4 is controlling. Let's see them one by one. Planning is determining organizational goals and means for achieving them, right? So you plan because you want to know what are the organizational goals and the means which are to achieve them. If you do not plan, what happens? Let's see, we have an example. There is this meta-analysis, the results of which I'm reporting here. They show that general mental ability of the candidates, that is 76% related to the performance of the candidates or the performance of the employees. So the employees who have general mental ability, they have 76% more chances to perform better at the workplace than the employees who are lower on general mental ability. So what are the implications of these findings for our discussion that we are making now? It is highly important. If the managers, they do not plan and they make, for example, the hiring, or they make their selections very haphazardly or in an ill-planned way or non-strategically, then what would happen is that they would lose this probability. If on the other hand they make their selection procedures very selective, they conduct tests at the beginning and during their selections. They make structured interviews to make sure that the candidates that they're hiring, they have more mental ability, or they're high on mental ability. So they screen only the candidates who are high on mental ability, then they would have higher chances that they have hired the right candidates for their job. So this is the importance of planning. Then we have the organizing. Organizing is deciding where decisions will be made, who will do what kinds of jobs, what will be the nature of job, what will be the job description, and who will be doing that job, whether that person is fit for that job or not, and who is best fit for the job. So who will work for whom, that is what will be the reporting relationships. So whether it would be a hierarchy, or it would be a flatter, or it would be in teams. So this is all the organizing of work and the organizing of processes, organizing of jobs, organizing of job design. Then we have the third management function, which is leading. Managers need to be leaders. When we say that they need to be leaders, this means that they need to be inspirational for their subordinates, for the employees, and they need to be motivating the employees. They need to take the employees out of the box. They need to inculcate that out of the box thinking in their employees. The employees should come out of their self-interest and start working in the higher interests of the organization. So leading means inspiring the employees, leading means motivating the employees. Here I have an example of CEO of Xerox, N. You must be familiar with the name of N. She is a very famous CEO of Xerox. So the key to successful leadership is communicating with the company's most important constituents, employees, and customers. Then we have controlling. Controlling is monitoring progress toward goal achievement and taking corrective action when needed. Without control, without adequate control mechanisms executed by the managers, managers won't be able to even understand where they stand, where their company stands, with how much of their goals are achieved, what were the organizational goals, what were the policies that they made to achieve those goals, and where are the loopholes if those goals are not achieved. What changes do they need to make in their organizational policies to achieve those goals? All these things would come through proper controlling mechanisms. So managers need to implement proper controlling mechanisms, proper evaluating mechanisms, and they need to take proper corrective actions where and when needed. So what is the control process? In the first step, what we do is that we set standards to achieve goals. Next, we compare actual performance to the standards. Of course, that's what always happens. First, we have the standards to achieve goals, that okay, I want to get the sales of $500 million in next 1 month from this department. And then you compare the actual performance with the set goals. Okay, at the end of the month, you see that you have sales of 400 only, but you had a target of 500. So there is a deficit of 100, and then you make changes to return performance to standards. So the standards have not met, the performance standards have not met. What were the reasons why the standards were not met? You need to make an evaluation of at the different steps, whether it is because of the poor performance of the employee, or it is because of something which is out of control of the employees. Maybe it is because of the economic downturn, it is because the industry did not perform well during that period, or what are the different reasons. If the reasons are within the hands of the organization or within the hands of the employees, then you need to take corrective actions in that direction, and vice versa. Then we have the effective managers. You see, we discussed the 4 functions of management, and the studies report that effective managers are those that perform these 4 functions of management. That is, those who plan, those who organize, those who lead, and those who control better, they are more effective managers. At AT&T, whose example I gave you in the opening case, I told there the probability of promotion is higher for the employees who plan better. They have higher probability of becoming managers. So that shows the importance of planning. That shows the importance of planning as well as the other functions of management. Then we have old versus new management styles. The functions that we talked about just now, which is planning, controlling, leading, organizing, they are also termed as the classical management functions. We also have some new management functions or the new management styles. Because of the changes, that so many changes that have taken place in the organization, the new challenges that the organizations are facing, the organizational structures have basically changed. Previously they used to be more hierarchical, and now the structures are more flattened, right? Then now there is more and more concept of teams, self-managed teams. Previously the work was organized around individuals, now it is organized around teams. Previously there was a concept of functional units. Now they are spread into the concept of now there are divisions, now there are matrix organizations, and so on. So the structures are more flatter now compared to earlier. So what implications it has for managers, what implications it has for the style of management. Previously the managers used to consider themselves as boss, and today the managers consider themselves or deal themselves with others in the as if they are the sponsors, as if they are the team leaders, as if they are their internal consultants and not boss. So the attitude of the managers has changed. Then the reporting relationships were very firm, they were very well defined earlier, in the earlier organizations, in the traditional organizations, in the classical management. The relationships were very crisp, they were very well defined, that who will report to whom, versus today anyone can go to the manager's office and make a discussion with the manager. It's more easier to approach the manager today. Employees are more frank with the manager today, and the distance that used to prevail between the manager and the subordinate, that is vanishing. Then the individual decisions used to take place in the classical management style. The manager used to make the decisions himself, but now the new management believes more in participative management, where they also take the opinion of all the employees in any important decision that has to be taken by the organization. Then earlier there used to be concept of long hours, inflexible working hours, long working hours. Now there is more and more flexibility in the working hours. Managers more focus on the results. Managers more focus on the task being done than on the time that is being spent in the organization. Earlier the managers used to keep the proprietary company information secret, but now that information is increasingly being shared with others. So these are the few basic differences that have been noticed in the management styles that are increasingly prevalent now. We'll be discussing all these in detail when we'll be talking about organizational structure in one of our lectures. Then we have the I just told you that okay, the management styles have changed. The new styles of management are different than they used to be earlier, but it does not mean that the classical management style or the classical management function has become obsolete. The four functions of classical functions of management that we discussed earlier, they are still being performed by the managers. They're the basic functions that the managers must perform. They must plan, they must control, they must lead, and they must organize. Here in this section we'll see a mix of the two functions that are being performed now in addition to the classical functions of management. So the first function is making things happen. So the managers, they need to basically make sure that things are being done, right? It's not only about the steps that the managers are taking, it's about the outcomes. Managers need to show that the outcomes are achieved, that the goals are achieved, that the objectives are met. So they need to plan, as we discussed the planning earlier. It's the same classical old function of management. They need to do the decision making, they need to manage the information, and they need to control, right? So we have an example of William End, who is the CEO of Land's End. It's a successful catalog retailer. So William introduced a number of different management techniques, the latest management techniques such as performance appraisals, which were based on peer reviews, then the production teams, training courses, effective communication, lost or undelivered orders were the result of that. All those different techniques that the CEO of Lansen introduced. Why? Although the different techniques that he introduced, they are not bad. Production teams, they're not bad. Performance appraisals based on peer reviews are not bad. He introduced almost around 20 training courses, that is not bad either. And effective communication is also a desirable management practice. So all these management practices are desirable, but then do you know why it resulted in chaos for the organization? It resulted in lost orders from the customers, and it resulted in negative overall output by the organization or by the employees. The reason was he basically introduced all these changes too fast, which the employees could not absorb. As a result of the formation of teams, they had a number of meetings, and the employees reported that they did not get enough time to do the actual work. They were more busy doing meetings than doing the work actually, right? So employees were actually more resistant to so many sudden changes and so many changes that had been implemented in the organization all at once. So the employees, they were working for the organization for a number of years in that smooth pace, but when all of a sudden they were introduced to these changes, they were more resistant to these changes, and they actually needed some time to get accustomed to those changes. So but William and the CEO of Lansen, he could not effectively introduce these management practices. So the manager needs to know how he has to make things happen. Introduction of these management practices even could not work. Working effectively is important. Getting output is important. How you have to get that output. And then we have the meeting the competition. That is the next aspect of management. So this is the new style of management, the new aspect or new function that the managers today must perform, which were not that critical in the classical management functions. Why? Because of the fast pace of today's economy, because of the increasing competition that the organizations are facing from the world over. You know, there is global management, there are free trade agreements as a result of that World Trade Order. Organizations, all the countries, they need to increasingly reduce their tariffs and start trade with all parts of the world. So as a result of that, there are significant challenges both for the developing nations and for the developed nations in their own terms. There are reduced entry barriers. There are falling entry barriers, which means that the competition is getting more and more stiff. It is more possible, and it is easily possible for the newcomers to enter the market. Then we have shorter product life cycles. The life cycles, they used to be longer earlier than they are now. Now there are more and more innovations. As a result of that, there is more and more technological development, and as a result of that, new products replace the older products. The products get old very soon, right? So managers need to understand this competition, and they need to meet this competition to stay in business. Then we have the organizational strategy. They need to formulate their organizational strategy as per the challenges of the external environment. We'll be talking more about organizational strategy in our next lecture, so we don't talk much of it here. Then we have the innovation and change, how the managers need to innovate and how they need to manage the change that William and could not manage. How you need to manage that change. What are the challenges when you introduce some change in the organization? Managers need to understand this. Then designing adaptive organizations. What do we mean by adaptive organizations? Organizations that are learning, organizations that are flexible, organizations that adapt to the changes taking place in the external environment. So how you can develop those organizations? Managers need to understand that. We have an example of IBM here. IBM was once market leader, right? And it had most of the share in its field, and it lost its share from 80% to 8% only in the 1980s because of the stiff competition that it faced from other competitors such as Compaq and Dell. So what does this entail for our discussion? It means that you need to be really adaptive, you need to be really responsive to the environment, to the market, in order to capture the market share, and in order to sustain that market share, in order to hold that market share. IBM, it was the market leader, but you see drastically lost its market share from 80 to 8%, and its competitors gained that share. So how this is an increasing challenge for the managers to keep their organizations adaptive, responsive to change, flexible, so that they can keep their market share. Then another management function that the managers, they must perform is organizing people, projects and processes. So management is largely about people, about managing diverse workforce, about managing teams, about managing human resource systems, about managing service and manufacturing operations. Here I have an example for you from Ford. When Ford purchased Jaguar, the management of Ford, they advised the new management of Jaguar to visit to meet the survivors or the remaining employees, because they had advised the Jaguar to initially lay off around 1/3 of the company employees and meet the survivors. So what the Jaguar's new management, when it met the survivors, they and asked them to make such efforts which can increase the customer loyalty and customer satisfaction, such as be more and more accommodating, more and more pleasing, more and more welcoming to the customers, so that the customer satisfaction can be enhanced. The employees, they were very true towards the new management of Jaguar, and the employees responded that if you cannot if you need to fire 1/3 of the company employees, and if you cannot take care of the company employees, how do you expect the employees to take care of the customers? So employee satisfaction is really important. Managing people appropriately is really important. The new management of Jaguar, on hearing this response from the employees, from the survivors, they were really shocked and they did not know what to say. So a good manager, it's a quality of a good manager, needs to know how he has to organize his people, how he has to organize his projects, how he has to organize his processes. If he cannot manage the people better, he cannot get the work done through people. Then we have the next important management function, which is leading. Leading by motivation, leading through leadership, providing good leadership, communication management. They're all the different aspects of leading. Here again we have an example of Herb Kelleher, who is the founder of Southwest Airlines. She was a great leader. She was a great motivator. She used to motivate and lead people through her very famous style, and she was a style of jokesteller and storyteller. So she was famous as jokester and storyteller. So she used to keep the company environment very light and full of fun, and people used to work in a very light environment, and they used to stay motivated. They really liked her style of leadership. The people used to love her, their leader. Then we have the different kinds of managers. We have the top managers, we have middle managers, we have first line managers, and we have team leaders. Well, top managers, chief executive officers, chief operating officers, chief financial officers, and chief information officer. They are all top managers in a company. What are the different responsibilities of top managers? We see that we have the different cadres of the management, different levels of the managers, as I told you earlier, and we see that how these managers are responsible for performing different roles, for performing different jobs with vis-a-vis their levels of management. So the higher management, they have different roles to perform, the lower managers have different roles to perform, and middle managers have different roles to perform. Here we see the responsibilities of top manager first. So top manager in the first place is responsible for creating a context for change, which means that top manager is responsible for making a vision for the company and giving a mission for the company and communicating it to the lower level managers and to the employees of the company, that okay, this is the vision of the company, this is the mission of the company, this is the direction that the company is going to work in, this is the strategy we are going to follow at the highest level, at the top level. I have the example of CEO of General Motors at Kodak. Both those CEOs, they were fired because they could not give this kind of vision and this kind of mission to the company. Then we have the second responsibility of the top managers, that is developing commitment and ownership in employees. The strongest signals that the employees receive, they come from the top managers. So if the employees perceive that the top management is commitment towards organizational policies and organizational goals, the employees will perceive those signals as very strong and they will act accordingly. If they perceive that the top management is not sincere or is not committed towards the goals, it will also work likewise. And again, if the employees, they perceive that the top management other than only does not own only the organizational policies, but it also owns the employees, it also takes care of the employees, it also cares for their needs, then employee commitment would be different. So it is the responsibility of the top managers to inculcate this feeling of ownership, of being owned by the management to the employees. Employees need to have this perception that they are being owned by the management of the company. Again, we have the example of Herb Kelleher, who is the CEO of Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines, you must be familiar with. It is one of the cheapest airlines in America and one of the most profitable airlines in America. And Herb Kelleher, she was often found sitting with the shop floor workers of her company at 4 o'clock in the night, discussing their problems, giving them the sense of ownership. So sitting with the mechanic of the company at 4 o'clock, so mechanic is the most junior person in the organization, and Herb Kelleher as CEO is the most senior person in the organization. A most senior person sitting with a most junior person, what kind of signal, what kind of message do you think it conveys to the employees, that how much the management cares for the employees, how much the management is committed towards the employees. Then we have creating a positive organizational culture through language and action. That is really important responsibility of the top managers. What message do they convey to the employees through their language and through their actions? CEO of one company reports that before sending the different memos to the employees in the organization, he writes those memos 10 to 20 times at least, and then sends the final memo to the employees, because he says that the language in the memo is really important. It will send important signals to the employees. Therefore, he writes it again and again before he finalizes it. And then we have the example of David Glass. David Glass, if you are familiar with, he is the CEO of Walmart. He often tells the stories of thriftiness of Sam Walton. Sam Walton was the founder of Walmart. He often tells the stories of the thriftiness of Sam Walton to the employees of the Walmart. So he not only tells the stories of the thriftiness of Sam Walton to the employees, but he also practices it himself. So it is important to keep telling the stories to the employees of what kind of culture you want in the organization, but also practice that yourself. So he used to practice that himself. So how he used to act thrifty when he used to travel, he used to stay in hotels that were very cheap So that were for $40 per night instead of the hotels that were costing $75-80 per night. Then another important aspect or other important responsibility that the top managers they need to fulfill, that is the monitoring their business environments. Next, we'll see the responsibilities and duties of the middle managers. Middle managers, who are middle managers? They're the plant managers, they're the regional managers, or they are the divisional managers. So middle managers need to plan and allocate resources to meet the objectives. We see that the long-term objectives of the company, they're being drawn by the top managers when they're giving the vision and mission of the company. They're the long-term objectives. And then we have the so the long-term objectives roughly constitute around 15 to 20 years long-term plans. When we are talking about the middle managers and the plans that they are formulating to achieve organizational objectives, we are talking about medium-term plans or intermediate plans, which constitute from 5 to 7 to 8 years. Right, so the middle managers are responsible to formulate such plans, and then they are responsible to formulate the to coordinate the activities of the different departments, of the different divisions, of the different units within the same division, right? So they act as coordinators between those different divisions, and then monitor and manage the performance of subunits and managers who report to them, right? And the managers who report to them. So they are also responsible for monitoring and managing the performance of the different units, of the different subunits, of the different departments, of different branches within the same division. And the first line managers who are running those departments, they are also reportable to them, and the regional managers are responsible for their performance as well. They're to keep a track of their performance. And the next responsibility of the middle managers is they implement changes or strategies that are generated by top managers. They need to make sure that those changes are being implemented, which were designed or which were given by the top managers. Here again I have a very interesting example again from Walmart. Andy Wilson, who is the regional vice president of Walmart, he visits the Walmart stores, which means that the departmental stores at the departmental level. He visits those stores regularly to see if the products in the stores are placed in the shelves as they were strategically planned at the top level. So in order to see if the top level strategies or the top level plans are being implemented, the middle level managers is visiting the lower level, that is the branch level or the department level, to make sure that the strategies at the top level are being implemented. So he visits those stores regularly in order to see the product placement. He also see if the products, some of the finished products, whether they are ordered in time. Once he visited one Walmart store and he saw that some of the shelves were empty, and he came to know from the department manager that the order was placed late, that is why the shelves were empty. So he immediately asked the department manager not to wait for the order to arrive from the warehouse of the company, but to get it arranged from the nearest Walmart location so that the shelves can be, the products in the shelves, they can be replaced immediately, quickly. Right, so that is the what he's doing here. He is monitoring the performance of the different subunits and also monitoring the performance of the managers who are working in those units or in those departments. Then we have another example from Walmart, from the Andy Wilson. What he used to do was that in order to see if the policies have been implemented as they were formulated, he goes to the nearest competition. The closest competitor of Walmart is Kmart. He visits Kmart very regularly, and once what he did was that he visited the Kmart store and he saw that near some of the products they had placed, they had compared the prices of some of the products with the Walmart prices. So he purchased those products, took them to the counter of Walmart and scanned those products and saw that the products of Walmart were around $20 cheaper than the products of Kmart. Had it been that the products of Kmart were $20 cheaper than those of Walmart, he would have reduced the prices of the Walmart products as well to at least $20, so that to make the Walmart products cheapest. Why was it? Because, or why would it have been? Because the Walmart's slogan is, or its strategic objective is, to be the cheapest in the market. They are in the line of business with this vision and with this mission, that they are to offer the most competitive prices in the market. So in order to make sure that that slogan was being met, he did all this exercise. Then we see the responsibilities of the first line managers. We have the office manager, we have the shift supervisor, we have the department manager. They're all the first line managers. So first line managers are basically managing the non-managerial employees, as you could see. But the other two categories of managers, they are managing the managerial employees. Middle managers, they are managing the first line managers, right? And the first line managers, they're managing the shop floor workers or the entry level employees. So what are their responsibilities? They just need to manage the performance at the entry level of the employees. So for that, what they do is that they make the short-term goals or the short-term objectives of their departments. So they make short-term plans, we could say. So short-term plan can be up to 1 year long, right? So they, for example, they give sales target to their to a sales representative or their sales team, or they give the targets to their telemarketing representatives, that they have to, for example, make this much phone calls in this much time. So they they give the performance targets to their employees. They encourage them on how they can perform their tasks more effectively and how it can be more rewarding for the employees. So they teach entry level employees how they have to do their jobs effectively, and they have them designing and making their schedules and their operating plans. So the marketing managers, they can, for example, track the phone calls of the telemarketing representatives to see whether the telemarketing representative is delivering all the contents of the product or the service that the company is providing to the client in true spirit or as per strategically planned by the organization. Then we have the responsibilities of team leaders. Team leaders is the lowest level. So we need to differentiate between the responsibilities of the team leader and that of the first line manager. We see that first line manager is normally also responsible for the management of human resources, that is about their hiring and firing decisions, about their performance appraisals, about their compensation management, right, and about their retention, about their trainings and stuff like that. But on the other hand, the team leader is mainly responsible for facilitating the team, for facilitating the members of the team, to provide them the environment, to provide them the resources that they need to carry on with their tasks, right? So the responsibilities of the team leader are different from the responsibilities of the manager or the first line manager. So the team leader, it just is a facilitator of team performance. Team leader is not responsible for team performance, right? He is just a facilitator of team performance. Team members are responsible for team performance. Then the team leader needs to manage the external relations. If there are, for example, two teams working in an organization and their tasks are interdependent, that is, one team has to perform a certain task or it has to prepare a certain part in a product, and then it moves to the second team, and then only then the second team can do its part of the job. Then what happens here is that if it is possible that since the tasks are interdependent between the two teams, the conflict can arise between the two teams or between the members of the two teams. So here comes the role of the team leaders. The team leaders of team A, for example, and team leader of team B, they need to sit together and they need to resolve that conflict. And similarly, the conflict can also arise within the team, within the members of the team that are working. There can be certain conflict arising between them. So the team leader again is responsible for smooth working of the team and resolution of the conflict between the team members. There are different managerial roles that can be that we'll be seeing here. The first one is the interpersonal, which is and the second one is informational, and the third one is decisional. Let's see what are the different interpersonal roles that the managers perform. First, the manager acts as a figurehead. Managers perform ceremonial duties. For example, there is opening ceremony an organization is opening a new department and there is an opening ceremony for that department. So the manager is performing that role of going to the opening ceremony, cutting the ribbon, and announcing the department open. Right? And then we have the second role that is being performed by the manager is that of a leader. Managers, as we discussed earlier, they need to be good leaders. They need to motivate and encourage their workers to accomplish their objectives, to accomplish their tasks. Right? And then the next role that is being performed by the managers is that of liaison. They deal with the people who are not only within their units, who are not only their subordinates or their followers, but also with the other units. They frequently need to deal with other departments, with the people from the other units. Then we have the informational roles that are being performed by the managers. The first one is the monitor. They need to scan the environment for information. They need to be constantly in touch with the external environment, with the changes taking place in the environment, and make note of those changes, getting information from the external environment, from their competitors, from their customers, from their suppliers, and so on. Then the second one, they need to be they perform the role of disseminator of the information that they get from the environment or from their it could be information from any source. They are the disseminators of that information to their department, to their subordinates, right, and to their company. So they also perform the role of spokesperson. They share information with others outside their departments or companies, such as for example, holding the AGMs, annual general meetings, with the shareholders. They're acting as the spokesperson. They are sharing the company's financial statements, for example, company's financial results, the company's progress, or announcement of for example, bonuses. Then there are the decisional roles that are being performed by the managers. The first one is the entrepreneur. They, of course, they need to adapt to the incremental changes that are taking place in the organization, in the external environment. They need to adapt to those incremental changes in order to keep pace with the external environment. Then they also play the role of disturbance handler. They respond to problems that demand immediate action. There can be a number of problems, there can be a number of disturbances that can arise in the organization. For example, a CEO of a company is changed and it brings a lot of disturbance in the organization. How the manager needs to handle that, has to handle that. This is the role that is being played, decisional role that is being played by the manager. Then the manager also acts as resource allocators. Which department, for example, needs to get how much resources. Within the same department, which employee needs to get how much resources, depending upon the tasks of the employees, depending on the different job responsibilities of the employees. Different employees may need different resource allocations, and the manager does that. Then we have the negotiator. Managers negotiate schedules, projects, goals, outcomes, resources, and raises, right? So they enter into negotiations for when it comes to the performance appraisal of the employees, when it comes to the salary negotiations. They can enter into negotiations with the labor unions, they can enter into negotiations with their suppliers, with their creditors, with the bank. So there can be a number of parties with whom the manager can play this role. Then there are a few important skills that the companies look for in managers. The first one is the technical skills. The second is the conceptual skills. Then we have the human skills, and we have the motivation to change. Here we see that technical skills is the ability to apply the specialized procedures, techniques, and knowledge required to get the job done. So it means that technical skills are the skills that an employee or that a manager that he needs to have to get the job done. So skills related to the task, to the fulfillment of the task. Then we have the human skills, the ability to work well with other people, the ability to deal with other people. Conceptual skills, the ability to see the organization not in parts but as a whole, to see the organizational strategy as a whole, not at the lowest level, not at the level of the department, how the different parts they affect each other, how the different units affect each other, how the different teams affect each other, how they're integrated with each other, how the company is working in relation to its external environment. Then motivation to manage, an assessment of how enthusiastic employees are about managing work of others. We see that what companies look for. Companies, of course, do not look for the managers who have unidimensional skills or the manager who has one of these skills. They need a good blend of all these skills in a manager. So effective manager would be one who possesses some of all these skills. But the skills, at the different levels of managers, different skills can be critical. So as we see here in this graph, the top technical skills are highly important for the team leaders, because the team leaders are the people who have to directly take the work from the teams, from the team members. So they need to be very technical, they need to be very strong on the technical aspects of the project or of the work or of the task, right? And first line managers also need to have good understanding of the task, of the contents of the task, of the skills that are needed to perform that task. But the top managers and the middle managers may not need to know about the technical aspects of the work as much as the first line and the team managers and the team leaders, because first line managers and the team leaders are the people who have to get that work done through the employees directly. Human skills, of course, human skills, as you can see here from the graph, they are equally important at all levels of management. Conceptual skills, they are important, more important for the top level managers, because they have to design the corporate strategy of the organization at the highest level. So they need to see the different parts of the organization in integration with each other and in integration to the external environment. So therefore they are most important for the top managers, they are a little lesser important for the middle managers, and they are least important for the team leaders. And then motivation to change again is most important for the top managers, because they have to take commitment from the employees, they have to send signals to the lower levels of the management. So it is most important for the top managers, and then for the middle managers, then for the first line managers, and least for the team leaders. Common mistakes that managers make. There are a few. I have pointed out a few mistakes that the managers make, which need to be avoided to become effective managers. So I'll fastly go through these. The first one is being insensitive to others, cold, aloof, and arrogant behavior to other employees, betrayal of trust. It is not necessary that if you have not been able to fulfill your promise with your employee, you have betrayed the trust of employee. You will betray the trust of the employee if you have not fulfilled the promise of the employee, you are not even communicating with the employee on that, or telling the employee, or excusing the employee for that, or giving him a justification for why you could not be able to fulfill the promise and what is the next plan. So similarly, if you're overly ambitious, you're constantly searching out for other jobs, that's a wrong practice by the manager, because then the manager cannot work that well or that effectively within the organization if he's constantly looking for other jobs. Then specific performance problems with the business. Over-managing, unable to delegate or build a team. It is important for managers to delegate tasks, to make a team, to delegate them to the team instead of doing all that himself or herself. Unable to staff effectively. Of course, if they're unable to design effective selection procedures, unable to think strategically, unable to adapt to boss with different style, and over-dependent on advocate or mentor. So here we see that how do the managers' expectations they change over time. When they just become the managers, they think that they are the boss, they have the formal authority, right? They need to manage the tasks, and job is not managing people. This is very important, that they consider that their job is not managing people, but their job is managing the task. But after 6 months of becoming the manager, they start understanding that their initial expectations, they were wrong. Their work is more and more fast-paced. They are really overloaded with the work. They have lots of phone calls. They have lots of emails. They have many people to meet. On an average, it has been reported that the middle managers, they have to do around 70 different tasks in 1 hour, right? And they are after every 2 minutes they are interrupted by someone who has come to meet them, or by some phone call during their task. So they have heavy workload. So their job is to be a problem solver and troubleshooter. This is what they realize after 6 months of management. And then when 1 year has passed, they completely understand that their job is no longer that of a doer. Their communication, listening, positive reinforcement is required to get the work done through people and the tasks, their job is not to manage tasks, their job is to manage people, and that can be done through better communication, through listening and positive enforcement, and learning to adapt and control stress, and job is people development. So competitive advantage, of course, it can be gained through people. We'll be discussing this in our next lectures. Here are a few practices that can lead to effective people, or that can lead to development of the human resources that can contribute to the competitive advantage of the organization, such as if you provide employment security, if you make your hiring procedures very selective, if you promote the employees from within, then they know that it gives them an encouragement and gives them the signals that the organization cares about them and that they are being developed and trained and they can be promoted tomorrow. High wages contingent on organizational performance, right? And then training and skill development of the employees, reduction of status differences, for example, the same cafeteria for the blue collar and white collar workers, and sharing of the information with the employees, because and the participation and empowerment as well, not only the sharing the information but also providing them the autonomy to participate and to make their decisions. So this was all for today's lecture. I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and I hope it was really informative for you. We will be discussing how to manage strategically for our next lecture. Thank you.